Hello out there, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
We are back once again.
We are back, guys. So, Nostradamus, and I've shared with you guys, the first time I started studying all of his quatrains was when I was about 12. And all throughout high school, I was just fascinated. Past high school, I've always been kind of a Nostradamus buff. And then, like the last 20 years, didn't really do too much with it until like the last year or so. And so I just got a complete book of all his quatrains with nobody else's, interpretations. Because there's a lot of people out there that rely on interpretations of other people, like Dolores Cannon, for instance. I'd rather go direct, and I'm blessed to have, I believe, one of the most talented, amazing people in the world as a wife, that she can do things that most people can't. And I know there's a crap load of governments that would love to have her on board in reality, as, it's not hard for her to remote view anything at any time. And also contact beings, so we've actually gotten in contact through meditation with, for instance, Aleister Crowley, who popped up, as well as Peter Dunov, who basically gave us a prophecy of a galactic superwave that's going to come in and explain that we're in an area. Right now, we've been in an area which is inhabited by all sorts of dark beings, which have been taking control of many people's minds and overshadowing them. Very, very similar. And this is way before David Icke was around. He was saying this way before David Icke came around. And so, Cindy was thinking of this quatrain today after we did our meditation out in the gorgeous sunshine and sweltering, maybe 30 degrees Fahrenheit. It was beautiful. The gods will make it appear to mankind that they are the authors of a great war. Before the sky was seen to be free of weapons and rockets, the greatest damage will be inflicted on the left. Interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is one that came to me doing mantras in the sun. I'm sorry. What they showed me was, it was like they were showing me hologram pictures, and they were showing me this big, huge hand in the sky. And I felt it was the hand of God. And you interpreted also with that something a little different, though.
Yeah, you were seeing what we would say are TR3Bs.
Yes.
And I'll see if I could pull it up really quick. So a lot of things are going to be declassified. By the way, the CIA declassified a whole bunch of, supposedly all of their UFO info. But these things, now back in, I think it was 1999, I was at the beach in Connecticut, in Milford, Connecticut. And it was, we would go to the beach on Friday nights and either bring Chinese food or pizza with us and just, have a little picnic on the beach. And we watched one of these type of ships go slowly overhead. And it was traveling at, I would say, 10 miles an hour. So we watched it for 20 minutes. And then it went over, out over the water. Charles Island was to the right of it, and it went over West Haven. But we watched it. And it had a light that would come on every so often in the middle of it. It had a series of lights going down both sides. And I knew, instinctively, this is not aliens. This is us. This is our military. But you saw a lot of these type of ships up there in the sky.
Right. They're telling me we're all going to be seeing a lot of these ships in the sky. A lot of new things are going to be happening. As far as getting dates and stuff, that's difficult because when you get these visions, you get what comes into clarity. You get you get what they give you. So this is what came to be, and this is something that's going to be coming up in our very near future. We're going to see some of these ships that they've been hiding for quite some time.
Yes, and as we know, and we're talking about, the CIA released its cache of files on UFO sightings. Galactic Federation expected. This is big, and there was a person by the name of Mary that made a comment. Galactics sounds like Star Trek. I can't recommend your channel. Well, it's time to get in the 21st century and realize that we've never been alone. Just do a teeny bit of research. Look at cave paintings. Look at all the medieval not photographs, but paintings showing, ships in the sky. And then just listen to the stories that are told by the indigenous people. Listen to the millions of people that have been abducted and had genetic experimentation on you. We've never been alone. The only ones that want you to think that we're alone are the ones that control this planet. That's the ones that want you to think they're alone. Why? Because they're working for certain entities they're not from here. So if they're not from here, then technically they're an alien. Some of them are interdimensional. They can move back and forth between 4D and 3D, perhaps as high as 5D. It's just a fact. The evidence is overwhelming. Look at Nazca, the Nazca lines. You can only make out what they are from the sky. Read the Sumerian, cuneiform writings. They talk about this. Every single culture talks about the gods. How about Quetzalcoatl? How about, the great white Pahana that's going to come back? How about Mother Shipton, speaking about at the end of these times when everything is washed away pretty much and there's just a bunch of people coming together, stragglers, survivors. What happens? A silver ship comes from the sky and helps people to organize and get started all over again. The Hopi talk about this. The Zulu talk about this. The only ones that don't talk about this, it's all originating from the traditional Abrahamic side of things, which is the dominant side on the planet. If you put traditional Christianity and Islam together, that's more than half the people of the planet. That's the dominant philosophy. And so that's reflective, as we've said, that's reflective of the controllers, because they want you thinking you're living on a flat plane all by yourself, and God is a man in the clouds directing all this. And you have no power in any of the outcome. It's just the will of God. They want you to feel powerless. They want you to feel hopeless and helpless. The only thing you could do is beg for God's forgiveness because you're born into original sin because Adam and Eve ate an apple. It's time to wake up. This is control. This is total control. This is totally putting you down into a negative vibe, a negative set of expectations where, okay, it's the punishment of God. We have it coming. Why? Well, because we ate an apple. Yeah. We disobeyed. We ate an apple. There's nothing, just to put it so bluntly, nothing so ridiculous as that. And then when you read stories that come from thousands of years earlier, the Sumerian ones, for instance, you see the gods lived amongst us. They loved the smell of lamb roasting. They actually made sound when they walked. They were physical beings, or they could take physical shape. They could overshadow people, quote unquote, possess people, which they still do to this day. That's not the creator of the universe. They want you to think it's the creator of the universe, but that's not the creator of the universe. Who rules the world anyway? Well, the Bible itself tells you Satan rules the world, so why are you listening to Satan's philosophy? Recognize there's many more. There's so many more texts that were kept out of the Bible and burned, because those were the ones that talked about God dwelling within. And Christ himself said, the kingdom of God lies within you. Heaven could be here any time. He said, don't look here, don't look there, don't look up in the heavens. Look within. That's where the kingdom of heaven is. It's time to get those negative controlling mindsets out of people's minds, because otherwise we're going to keep manifesting exactly what they want us to do, which we know they're orchestrating all this so that we will basically take care of ourselves so nobody else has to do it. And that's part of this bigger picture that's underway. And unfortunately, too many people are totally brainwashed. And that is very, very sad, but it's par for the course.
Well, yeah, and I have seen people, and this makes me sad, attack other people in comments or when other people are doing lives. If someone says something besides Jesus, they just attack them. They're like, well, you can't believe this, if aliens are all demons. And then they go on the attack, and we have to stop attacking each other. That's the main thing.
Yeah, because, those are the people that were manipulated into helping to terminate the lives of 60 to 100 million native indigenous people on the Americas with the thought that they're saving souls. But yet, really what it was just a corporate takeover. It was all about just acquiring more resources, taking over more land, sending the gold back to the church, etc., etc. How about, the witch hunts and the Inquisition? The people that right now are manipulated and controlled in that mindset are the same people that would have the torches and be ready to start the fire to burn the witch. So they are the most dangerous people out there, the ones that are easily manipulated and controlled. We have to learn to think for ourselves, question everything. As we said, Buddha said, don't believe anything because I tell you, and don't believe anything because me and Cindy tell you. But open your mind and open your eyes and recognize when you're being manipulated. Because right now, so much of the world is ready to walk off a cliff. And they're being manipulated into another massive conflagration. And of course, there are beings out there. It's obvious. So, interesting stuff coming out, guys. And, they've declassified so much right now. They've come straight out and said, a lot of this we got no explanation for. So why are they doing it? Because they know their feet are to the fire, and they know they only have a short time. So again, there is truth in the Bible, and there's truth in every religion around the world. You could find universal truths. That's the bottom line. And the beings that truly are spreading light and love don't fight amongst themselves. So you're not going to see, an MMA match between Krishna and Jesus Yeshua. That ain't going to happen. That's not the way it works. The dark side wants us to be at each other's throats and just constantly squabbling, thinking only I have the right way. I'm one of the blessed ones. Only my way is right. You all going to burn in hell. It's all where your vibrations are. It's all where your intentions are. It's all about your karma, what you're putting out there. So judge not, lest ye be judged. And recognize that Christ himself said, we shall do greater things than him. How is that possible if he's the only one with God within? It's not possible. It's just absolutely not possible. And if God is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent, then he has to be within every single one of us, even the birds, even the bees, everything.
Mm-hmm. So, all of these things, it's time to wake up to them. It's time to wake up and understand that we have been manipulated for many, many years, and it needs to stop. We need to stop going against each other. And like Mike said, you would never see Krishna and Jesus at an MMA. No, they work together. Like if one actually might not be able to get something done, then the other is going to help, and you can call on your angels as well. And if something's in your life is not being taken care of, you can ask for help. And that's what we need to take away from this.
Exactly. It's time to be a little bit more, it's time just to wake up, because again, they are basically, what they're doing is they're grabbing everybody by the shoulders, facing them towards each other, handing them basically everything they would need to terminate the other, and just giving them a little push and a nudge and saying, go do it. And, that's exactly what's going on. So as long as we have these divisive beliefs and these negative beliefs, then we're playing into their hand. At the same time, we can't be an ostrich and stick our head in the sand, because they're still going to do what they're going to do. We are co-creating our own reality, but they are also manipulating everybody into creating a certain negative reality. And this, this is from the People's Daily in CHINA, the place with the fine dining ware. And many interpret this being an eagle flying over CHINA. Interesting. And again, we're using the code because they have been demonizing us lately again, which is par for the course. It's par for the course. And, the eagle, will the eagle be flying over CHINA? I think it's the other way around right now. And that's where we're heading. We are heading the other way around, unfortunately, because as we know, they love to do things on a grand scale. They love to plan things out. They love to even tell us what they're going to do. And there's so many hints about what they are going to do and how they are going to do it. And so when Cindy was bringing up that one, I started thinking rods from God, because these things are scary. And so there was a 107 country outer space treaty signed in 1967 that prohibits nuclear, biological, or chemical weapons from being placed or used from Earth's orbit. Interesting. Back in 1967, right? We're still on the race to land on the moon, quote unquote, which may or may not be all completely part of a Hollywood studio event, but it doesn't mean we can't. We have gotten that we're not only on the moon, but that we're on Mars, even on Venus, and also on the moons around Jupiter and Saturn.
Very, very much populated areas, yes.
Yeah, because again, Cindy's remote viewed it, and we've also gotten the messages from the Galactics about this. So what they got here are basically tungsten rods that are up in satellites in space. Now, these are pretty scary because as they would enter the atmosphere, they would reach speeds of up to 10 times the speed of sound, Mach 10. That's intense. And so the rod itself would penetrate hundreds of feet into the Earth, destroying any potential hardened bunkers or secret underground sites. More than that, when the rod hits, the explosion would be on a par with the magnitude of a ground-penetrating, yes, NUKE weapon, but with no fallout. So we know, as when we go back to what in 2005 the Chinese military officials said, was first they would launch WEAPONs. You guys know, right? They would let that sink in, and the reason they wouldn't necessarily do NUKESs is twofold. For one, that so-called Galactic Federation would intervene if there was major events going on like that, because they don't want the planet destroyed. It's just that simple. And also, those things affect beings on different densities, different dimensions. So it doesn't just affect us here in the physical. It affects other people, other beings that are existing in other dimensions. And the other thing, too, is because the majority of the reason is food production. They're going to need, once their population got to about 1.2, 1.3 billion, they would either have to lose half the population, or they would have to take over Australia, Canada, or the U.S. for food production, and or all three of them.
And, that just brings me back immediately to all those seeds we were getting 6 months ago. People were just getting these seeds from the place of fine dining to their houses. And what was that telling us? It was telling us, well, there might be a problem coming up.
Yeah, most definitely. So, we might see these rods from God or rods from the gods coming in. And it makes me think of Beirut, too. It makes me think of Beirut because we saw like something coming down, and then we saw that. And, I think there's been a lot of tests that have been going on lately that maybe some of those strange things we see in the sky are all sorts of tests going on as well. So the gods will make it appear to mankind that they are the authors of a great war before the sky was seen to be free of weapons and rockets, the greatest damage inflicted on the left. Well, if you're looking at a globe or a map, it all depends on what perspective you're looking at it. Which damage on the left. I mean, if you're Eurocentric, which he was, he was in France. So, then if you're looking on it, you'll be looking at the U.S. As being on the left. You'd have North and South America to the left of Europe. So is that what he's talking about? And what I was getting back to was the fact that Cindy felt like she could make contact with him. She tried to reach out, and she felt like it was possible to make contact with him. And this is another thing. Why do people trust what's in a book, right? That was supposedly channeled thousands of years ago, even though, when you get down to complete copies, they're not that old. And there are thousands of revisions and edits in them. And not trust their own selves or other people that are alive currently. Isn't it written in the last days you're going to have your young men dreaming dreams and seeing visions? Because why? Because everything that's going on right now. The energy around us, the energy that's coming in from the sun is changing our DNA. It's reawakening us. They have to admit now they found people with 3 strands and 4 strands of DNA, and we're heading towards 12. And again, why 12 tribes? Well, look, why 12 apostles? Look deeper than the obvious, as so many people will give the interpretations of Revelation, which I've heard for 40 years. Those interpretations, they're nothing new. And when you look at other prophecies, there's other prophecies from other places around the globe that are even more explicit and have proven to be every bit as accurate. So it doesn't tell us, it doesn't mean it's the God, creator of everything that has given us these prophecies that we have in the most published book in the world. Why? If we can agree that certain people, and every single president swears on what? What do they swear on? They don't seem to burn instantly when they put their hand on it. You would think if they really were evil and Satan, wouldn't they start toasting on fire when they touched it? And they could at the same time get holy water anointed. They don't burn up in flames. Start questioning things. Start waking up.
Absolutely. It's super, super important. Now is the most critical time that we could wake up and question the information we've been given since kindergarten. Actually, before kindergarten, I think a lot of our parents took us to Sunday school to give us our belief system and pound it into our minds and our ego that if we believe anything but this, we're going to burn in hell for eternal damnation. And that's something that does play on the ego. It does play on the psyche, because honestly, if you're anyone who questions anything, you think, oh my, what if I'm wrong? But then you have to look back at everything Mike said. Obviously there's more to it than what has been told. So look at the whole picture. Don't be afraid to step out. I know for some it might be a little bit iffy and a little bit shaky, but just push yourself a little bit. And once you start seeing all the evidence, once you start feeling how this information feels going into your soul, and I really implore people to use their heart and their emotions when they read stuff and take in information and see how that feels, and then go from there.
Yeah, as we were saying, there's over 200 gospels in circulation, and we got 4. And the oldest copy we have is of the book of John is 300 years old, 300 years AD, about there. And it has like thousands of revisions and edits. Why did they keep editing it? Why did they keep changing it? They've been changing things all along. Now, there's even those that believe that Francis Bacon really wrote the writings of Shakespeare, and that was really how the King James Bible was put together. So get to the older stuff. Go read the Nag Hammadi and go into the mystery schools. There's a reason why in the West they're the quote-unquote mystery schools. And there's a reason why people are fearful of the occult, because you've been conditioned to be fearful of the occult. What's the occult? That's what's hidden. Why is it hidden? Well, because we can't talk about it outright, because it goes against the powers that be, whether we call them the CABAL, whether we call them the ILL, you get the rest, right? Whatever we call them, this is part of their disinfo. And so we have to recognize that. And it's not just, on this side, it's also going on down through what we see going on out in the Middle East. And, when we look back to Pike, he made the statement back in 1871 that there's 3 major conflagrations that are planned, and Nostradamus talked about 3 antichrists as well. And so the last one, hasn't been revealed, quote unquote, yet, or has it been revealed? But also way back in 1871, and that's real too. And who brought Israel into being? Was it God, or was it somebody whose name means red shield, who happens to be one of the premier banking families in the world? I mean, look at the Balfour Declaration and see who really brought it back into being. Many of you guys know, but just for those people that are just coming on board recently. So, this is all interesting. Then when we look over, and I know this one's going to go a little bit longer, there's just so much to talk about. And there's so much going on. We have a statement from number 1 calling for no violence, no law breaking, no vandalism of any kind. And so as we enter the last week of this time period, and we'll see what is going to come of all this. And by the way, everybody's going to have to get a test. Everybody that comes into the U.S. of A., including people that live in the U.S. of A., are going to have to get a test to enter the country. And we have over 20,000 National Guard that are expected in the capital now. That number has gone from 6 to 15 to over 20. It's huge. And so we also have one of the top officials of the Marines telling number 3, whose name begins with a P, NP is the initials, by the way, we don't work for you, just to put it that way. So this is exactly what we've felt and what we've gotten all along. And meanwhile, we were talking about a flock of seagulls. I ran so far away.
Far away, yes.
But we couldn't get away.
That's too bad.
Couldn't get away from the CABAL.
Bummer.
I know. Well, they're all seeing eye is just following us everywhere.
It does. It follows all of us.
So they launched missiles during drills off their new ships that they have. It's wild and crazy. Who would have ever thought that there would be, there's a Twitter account for HEZBOLLAH, which is associated, it's a group, it's a militant group associated with the flock of seagulls. They could have a Twitter account. Isn't that interesting? And yet so many others don't anymore. Pretty wild. But anyway, they're offering consultations and training for future, I guess they would say freedom fighters here in the good old U.S. of A.
Mm-hmm. And now we just gave them a little blurb there, so I'm sure they'll appreciate that little bit of information.
And, there has been this plague upon the land. By the way, there's new strains that are originating here in the good old U.S. of A., which, the more you look at it, the more it looks like that whole speech back in 2005 by that official of the, let's say it backwards, PCC.
Yeah. Let's use that.
Who made that statement. It looks more and more like that's the reality all along. Yet again, recognize that there's the real puppet masters are above all this, and they're controlling everything that we see going on. And dozens lost everything. Let's put it that way, so we have to be really careful when we talk about anything now. In those strikes in Syria last night, because we were talking about that, there was over 18 strikes by Israel on multiple targets right by the border with Iraq, and dozens have lost everything, let's just put it that way, which is sad. And then we have AOC calling for liberation of the southern states. If you, in these times, with the tension the way it is, can you make a more inflammatory statement? Can you, what is it? It's like taking out the barbecue gas lighter and just saturating a pile of straw and then just, trying to flick matches over the top of it.
Well, she's speaking in her own code, so what that means is basically lockdown.
Yeah, everything is the reverse of, what is said, and that's how this world works now. That's how this system works. And so, on Twitter, incredible liberation of the southern states to heal our country. And wow, what can you say? And by the way, 10 years ago, there was a emergency action notification that came through the EAS system, and it was scary. Really, really scary to listen to. And was this just a nothing burger, or was this a foreshadowing?
I don't know. I don't want to say either way. I just don't like the fact that it was out at all.
None of us want to hear like this type of stuff come through.
We interrupt this program. This is a national emergency.
And it goes on to talk about 15 cities here in the US of A that were struck by the worst type of weaponry. And, I have not found any explanation for this, but it says this is not a drill. And I'll see a way if I could get you guys a link to that without, I don't think it'd be a problem. I'll put it down in the links so you could go listen to it yourself. As we know, a lot of times things are to be foreshadowed. And I wonder if it's really making reference to, the rods of God.
It very well could be, yep.
So, guys, thank you so much for being part of this family. Make sure you are subscribed. And I know we probably ruffled some feathers. We tend to do that. And, we're here to basically give you our truth, what we have gotten, and to try to hopefully help people to make the right decisions and help to transition into the newer time period that's going to come as we move out of the dark age and move, towards a golden age again. We are in for a ride, though. This is going to be one heck of a roller coaster ride.
We lovingly ruffle feathers, I guess.
Yeah, because, I know a lot of people think they're doing the right thing, but they haven't looked at things from every angle. They haven't studied every perspective on things. And so thus they allow themselves to be manipulated without even knowing it. Think about how many people feel like fools now for certain things that were out there, and really wanted to believe in something, but now feel like they were taken advantage of. And so they're feeling more despondent. Yeah. And, that's part of this sobering of, the consciousness of those on the planet and in this country and also in the EU. Because I think this country and the EU are going to be in for probably the most of the trying times compared to a lot of the other nations on the world.
It's very important to really find your own truth, believe in yourself, and don't be afraid to look.
Most definitely. And thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We couldn't do it without you guys, literally. As you guys know, like the first channel got demonized, and they're starting to hit us harder on this second channel when, Brighteon, for instance, which has probably 1/10 or maybe 100th of the people watching it than do YT, and the views over there are double than here. That's telling you something.
And can we please say a huge thank you to Miss Tammy and Miss Susan for your recent contributions.
Yeah, for the support over on Patreon, and thank you all of you guys have been reaching out for Vedic charts and energy work and healing. We appreciate you guys, and we thank you for your patience with the scheduling. As always, guys, have a plan. Stay prepared. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.